Hello, isn't it time we changed the conversation about frames? There are thousands of spectacle frames to choose from, different brands, different shapes, different colors, different materials. So, what makes stepper eyewear different? To answer that, we need to think differently about how we evaluate a frame. Not by fashion alone, not by the logo on the temple, and not by the designer name. Instead, we start with the person who will actually wear the spectacles, their face, their prescription, their comfort, their individual fitting requirements. And then we ask one fundamental question: what is a spectacle frame actually there to do? A spectacle frame has an important optical purpose. It needs to hold prescribed lenses correctly before the eyes. It needs to remain stable in wear, and it needs to achieve this while being comfortable on the face. That sounds simple, but faces aren't simple. Every face is different. Head width, bridge shape, facial contours, temple position, proportions, all vary from one person to another. That means fit cannot simply be something we think about after a frame has been chosen. At Stepper Eyewear, fit is considered from the beginning. It is part of the design. And that distinction changes the way we should talk about Stepper Eyewear. With many frame brands, the conversation may begin with appearance. What style do you like? What color would you prefer? What brand would you like to wear? Those questions still have their place. But with Stepper Eyewear, there is another question that should come first. What is going to fit this person well? Because when the starting point is the wearer, frame selection becomes more meaningful. We begin thinking about anatomy, comfort, stability, lens positioning, materials, and the individual needs of the person in front of us. This approach is not a recent marketing idea. It goes back to the origins of Stepper Eyewear. Hans Stepper was a German master optician. His understanding of eyewear began from an optical professional's perspective, and his early work used facial contours and measurements to develop frames with better fitted characteristics. That thinking has continued for more than 50 years. Observe the face, understand its anatomy, choose materials for purpose, design the frame around the wearer, and help the eye care professional achieve the best possible fitting result. That heritage matters because it explains something important. Stepper Eyewear didn't begin by asking how a frame could become a fashion brand. It began by asking how a frame could work better for the person wearing it. Take WorldFit. Stepper Eyewear has spent decades observing facial dimensions from people around the world. That knowledge has helped develop different characteristic fit profiles to assist eye care professionals in selecting frames for different facial anatomies. But WorldFit is not about putting people into boxes, quite the opposite. It recognizes that every person is an individual. The fit profiles provide a better starting point. The eye care professional then brings professional judgment, individual facial measurements, prescription requirements, and wearer preferences together. The objective is simple: find the frame that works best for the individual. The same thinking applies to materials. When we talk about TX5, titanium, or beta titanium, we shouldn't simply recite a list of technical specifications. Ask instead, what does the material do for the wearer? Lightweight construction can reduce unnecessary pressure. Hypoallergenic materials can support comfort for sensitive skin. Material stability can help a frame maintain its intended shape. Flexibility can contribute to fit and wearing comfort. This is how technical information becomes meaningful. Don't simply tell somebody what a frame is made from. Explain why that material was chosen and what that means when the frame is worn. This brings us to one of the most important characteristics of Stepper Eyewear. It is a brand recommended by eye care professionals. That recommendation carries weight because an eye care professional understands things the wearer may never have considered. They understand the prescription. They understand lens requirements. They understand fitting, and they can recognize when a frame works with the individual rather than asking the individual to compromise around the frame. You cannot manufacture genuine professional recommendation through advertising. It has to be earned. And that makes the eye care professional an essential part of the Stepper Eyewear story. So how should we communicate Stepper Eyewear? Keep it simple. Start with the person, then connect the design to a benefit they can understand. For example, instead of saying Stepper Eyewear uses advanced materials, explain, the materials are selected to help make the frame lightweight, stable, and comfortable throughout the day. Instead of saying, this frame has an anatomical design, explain, The frame has been designed around facial contours, so we are starting with a shape intended to work with the face. And instead of simply saying, "This is world fit," explain. Faces differ, so Stepper Eyewear develops different fit profiles to give us a better starting point when selecting the right frame for you. Technical knowledge creates credibility. Making that knowledge relevant creates understanding. If you represent Stepper Eyewear professionally, your role is not simply to show another collection of frames. Your role is to help the eye care professional understand why the brand deserves a different conversation. Talk about fit, talk about comfort, talk about anatomical design, talk about materials and why they are used, talk about world fit, talk about the optical purpose of the frame, and then encourage the professional to experience the difference for themselves. Because once the principle is understood, Stepper Eyewear becomes easier to explain and easier to recommend with confidence. For the eye care professional, the conversation becomes even more simple. You don't need to give your patient an engineering lesson. Use your expertise to translate the engineering into something meaningful. This shape works particularly well with your facial anatomy. This material gives us the lightness we're looking for. This frame is sitting very naturally on your bridge. This gives us a good, stable position for your lenses. Now the patient isn't being asked to believe a brand claim. They are receiving a professional explanation relevant to their face, their spectacles, and their vision. That is a much more powerful conversation. This is why the perfect fit means more than whether a pair of spectacles feels comfortable when somebody first puts it on. It brings together anatomy, materials, optical requirements, professional expertise, and the wearer experience. And it gives us one consistent story. We don't need to reinvent Stepper Eyewear for every customer practice or market. The language can change, the level of technical detail can change, the conversation can change, but the principle remains consistent. Understand the person, understand the purpose of the frame, then explain why Stepper Eyewear is designed differently. The strongest frame selection conversation does not begin. Let me show you another brand. It begins with understanding the face, understanding fit, understanding comfort, understanding the relationship between frame, lenses, and wearer, and understanding the value an eye care professional adds to that process. When people understand the difference, they can recognize the value. And when professionals recognize the value, they can recommend Stepper. So let's change the conversation. Let's look beyond the name on the frame and focus on what really matters: how it fits, how it feels, and how well it supports the prescribed lenses. Because when we choose eyewear around the individual, we don't simply improve comfort, we help improve vision outcomes. Should you have any further questions about Stepper Eyewear, as an eye care professional or a spectacle wearer, Ask Stepper is our insightful, AI-powered support guide available via our website.